All right. Hello, and welcome back to
Okay.
another episode of the SuperClash SpookyCast. I'm your host, Trey, joined today, as always, by my co-hosts, Connor and David. Say hello, boys.
Yo,
Hello, boys.
All right. Today we will be discussing Us, Jordan Peele's latest addition to the horror genre. As always, spoilers ahead.
Yeah, them spoilers.
Us is a psychological thriller in which a set of doppelgangers begin to terrorize a family while on vacation. The plot takes a turn, however, when the family soon realizes it is not just them who are being afflicted with this new horror, but in fact, all of the United States. In a battle for survival, the Wilson family slowly begin to discover the origins of this epidemic, only for one of the family members to discover a dark secret she has been suppressing for many years, and a not-so-subtle plot twist ending. It was a deep movie, man. Like, you had to look, for the meaning in it.
Yeah,
Which
it was
is one
for
of
me.
the-
It was. Go ahead.
Like with Get Out, it was like, it made you think. Granted, like that was a more concise movie than this is, but I enjoy the fact that with his movies, he's making you think. Rather than it just being about like jump scares and thrills like most horror movies are these days.
Yeah, for me, the movie wasn't so much a horror flick as it was a psychological thriller, I guess, if you want to kind of categorize it like that. Jordan Peele is kind of making a name for himself as a force to be reckoned with in the horror scene, just like Jason Blum did with his now Blumhouse Productions, which I think has done most of the Conjuring series and Annabelle, if I'm not completely mistaken. But as soon as I heard that Jordan Peele was doing another horror movie, and this is what it was definitely another branch off of Get Out, as far as this was kind of his style. Excuse me. And something else that he wanted to do to kind of make it to where it's not a typical horror movie. But it's also, for me, horror movies have almost always had simple to understand stories of where they're going, or at least a sequel to, wrap things up. With Get Out, I felt the story, as I watched through it, things were clicking, making sense, and after I watched it, things were making a little bit more sense. Because it was basically the complexity of the movie was just buried right underneath the surface. I mean, if you just thought about it a little bit while you're watching it, like I had quite a few aha moments while I was in the theater. With Us, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Because, like you said, Trey, I'm going to have to probably watch it again, because I'm sure there are some things that went over my head the first time. And, I mean, I can respect the fact that Jordan is doing this to kind of break away from the typical horror movie mold. But to me, this is more of a thriller, not really horror. As, with horror, you either expect a crap ton of blood, which, I mean, there was a little bit. They didn't show a whole lot of stuff, which I thought was actually kind of surprising that they didn't show more, but they probably weren't going for let's make this, as gory as possible. But no jump scares really to be heard of. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of being scared at things. It was more of like music, crescendo, build up, all that kind of stuff. To like, basically, I was always waiting to see what would happen in the next scene, because the current scene wasn't saying a whole lot.
Right.
So
I feel like this movie was kind of weird in the way that in some ways you want to look at it a little bit deeper. You want to break things down and ask the questions, and especially when there's not really ambiguity in some of the parts. It's pretty clear that the events that take place in the film are not metaphorical events or anything. There's not really meant to be a supernatural tone to it that I can tell. But the problem is, when you start taking a deeper look at it, you start to see that there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. A lot of weird questions. Who's running these facilities? Where are they when this is going down? Why did these facilities ever exist? Other than the small explanation they gave.
I will say, that is probably one of the biggest complaints that I have about this film is that I think they focus too much on the big picture and they let a bunch of the smaller details slip through the crack.
And it didn't do them any favors with the exposition dumps they had either.
Right.
At the beginning or near the beginning and at the end, they had two really big exposition dumps, and it took the things that you could imagine away and left you only to imagine the more practical details of it, which kind of fall apart under scrutiny, unfortunately.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's dozens of questions you can ask. Who's feeding these people? There's this, millions of people down there, right, as doppelgangers. Right. And so who's maintaining this facility? It looks pretty clean down there, but these people seem to be going through day-to-day, movements of the people above them. So, they're mirroring the movements of above. So somebody has to be there kind of keeping this shit together, I guess.
You would have to imagine that when the people above clean, the people below are doing the same thing.
But then again, you kind of wonder, okay, it shows a kind of understanding between the girl who... So the main character, she ends up kind of flip-flopping at a certain point. So the actual girl ends up going underground, whereas the doppelganger gets to go to the surface. But when these characters below are mirroring all the moves and seem to be doing all these things, how is she able to even communicate an idea to them and break them from that tethered movement? That's another question that I had on it. It didn't really explain how.
So like, are you saying like when the real Adelaide is underground, how is she able to convince all the untethered to follow her?
Correct.
So it shows a little bit of detail on that when it's talking about how she likes to dance. And so like there's a recital that's going on, and above ground the doppelganger is dancing and below ground Adelaide is dancing. And she's like I don't really remember how the movie explains it, but it basically, something happens that shows the tethered that Adelaide has more complexity to her than like they thought they were capable of, being the inferior like doubles. And so I believe through that they themselves think, well, if she can do this, not realizing that she isn't the doppelganger, then maybe they can too. And so they put her up as like a leader, and so that's why she begins the revolution, so to speak.
Well, she's the only one of all of them that can talk.
Right.
Ish.
Plus, I don't understand how the people underground have any awareness to... Like, they wouldn't have any more awareness to the people above ground, as somebody would to those below,
Well, I think the way the movie put it was that the tethered knew that there was a connection to the ones above ground, whereas vice versa, the people above ground were unaware of the tethered.
Yeah. I think another interesting piece to the film is that in some ways I wish they didn't go... I think the comedy was done right, but I don't think it should have existed.
I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was funny. It was a nice balance between like intense situations and lightening that mood.
Yeah, but I didn't know what kind of tone to take with the movie. Do I want to take this as more of a serious thriller, or is this more of a lighthearted,
rom-com?
Yeah, I couldn't really figure it out as far as like the tone. It didn't have as consistent of a tone as a movie like Get Out did. Like that movie was consistent throughout.
100% horror, yeah.
The characters felt more real, I think, in Get Out. In Us, I don't feel like the interactions between the family felt really natural.
Yeah, like it feels underdeveloped.
Like,
for sure.
I get that the main actress, her character is supposed to be this doppelganger that has come to the surface and kind of integrated in that society, but her husband is kind of bold and kind of funny and vivacious, and a person like that would not mesh well with a person who hardly ever speaks. And I mean, to me, she had the personality of a wooden plank. So I know that opposites attract, but those people, like, what would he ever talk to her about? What would she ever talk to him about? They'd never really. I feel like almost they were missing some establishment for her that showed her acting more human. She didn't really seem to act very. Not a lot of human emotions and interactions. The kids seemed fairly with it. I didn't really understand why the little boy constantly had a mask. I have never ever seen a kid do that. That was kind of weird, but
that and the kid's doppelganger, half of his face being burnt. I mean, a lot of that stuff didn't make sense to me. But the one thing that I would have liked to see between the main character's childhood and adulthood to being married, kind of a buffer between as a teenager for when she's kind of trying to get acclimated with society and students at school or whatever, or parents or something like that. It's just it goes from kid to adult and married, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a hell of a development for someone that was born in a society where communication isn't a thing.
I also kind of wish the entire movie, like from right out the gate, before I knew anything about this movie, I was thinking, oh, she's the doppelganger. The main character, she's the doppelganger the whole time. And I kind of wish that at the end that she wasn't. Because that would have been more of a surprise to me if she wasn't. I actually thought up until the very end that, I guess she isn't, And I don't think it made a whole lot of sense for her to be the doppelganger, just because of the fact that when they're down below and they're doing their big exposition dump and they're revealing, what that person had to do all of this time and all these things, it's almost as if the main character who's below ground, it's as if she's unaware that the character above is actually the doppelganger. It seems if they did not add the little bit of what's going on inside of her head at the very, very end of the movie, you would think that, okay, so the doppelganger is dead and the real one survived. It almost feels tacked on, and it doesn't come as a surprise, and it might have even been a little more interesting if they wanted to go that route, if they had made the reveal a little bit more subtle instead of right in your face. Leave a little ambiguity to it, Let the boy kind of look at her and her kind of smile at him, and then that be it. Don't give the little bit of backstory in her head about them switching out, and just don't. Just let it kind of have its own room to breathe. You know, I don't know. It did not. The ending did not sit well with me. It felt weird. I don't know, and not in a good way.
Yeah, I think like somewhere along production, in order to push the emphasis of like the greater meaning along to the audience, some things were left out for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, definitely the people underground could have been developed a lot better. Had the twist ending been a little more subtle, yes, it would have made for a better movie. But I'm not saying this is a bad movie. Like, I still enjoy this movie, and I would recommend.
I'm just giving it a
to see
critique,
it, right? But yeah, it definitely could have been done better.
It almost feels like it would have been better suited for like not a full on like movie and a sequel or even a trilogy, but more like a mini series, right?
Yeah.
Where you have a bigger amp up. You're getting a little bit of backstory on people above and the people below. You have your big climax, and then maybe it winds down after that. I think that would have been better. It just seemed like it was such a huge idea to convey to the audience
in like 2 hours or less.
And a very interesting concept. It's definitely unique and something that I don't think I've experienced very often. But you're trying to water something so big and detailed down, and what ends up happening is you get this story that leaves people with the wrong kind of questions at the end. Mm-hmm. Your questions should be more over to, what the movie made you feel versus, well, how did this happen? Or wait,
where did they get all those scissors?
Yeah, like it's a lot of questions like that.
And where the hell's my doppelganger? I hope I never meet him.
I heard some critiques of the film that said they didn't feel like there was any weight to the timing, to the times where there was like suspense. So a lot of people said, well, I didn't really feel like any of the characters were going to die, but I actually disagreed with that part. I felt like it was possible that she might be the only one left at the end, right? The mom. Yeah. I felt like it might be that the kids die and the husband. I definitely thought the husband was going to die in the beginning. I was like, well, he's dead.
Right.
He's really dead.
That whole scene at the beginning where they're all in the living room and like they're one by one, like, gone, like they leave.
That had me convinced that they were. That had me convinced that they weren't going to make it to the end of the movie.
Yeah, and then when the mom tells the son, like, yeah, go with the other fucking creepy dude, it'll be fine. It's like, yeah, all those people are dead now. But it
well, I mean,
turn out that way.
kind of a slave to the person that's running your house at the moment. So I mean, it's either like have follow these rules, or we have scissors. So. And a fireplace.
The other thing that bugs me kind of is, if the goal was to kill all of them and take their place, so to speak, then why would Red allow them to escape? Like, with the Tylers and their doppelgangers, it was like, fucking boom, they're all fucking dead. So
it seemed like she wanted to. She had more of a vindictive piece to it.
It was definitely revenge, and like she wanted to. Like,
she wanted
toy
him to
with
suffer.
them.
Yeah,
but I guess they ended up being more resilient than she thought.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes to the point of like, the main character, the mom. I mean, both copies knew that there was a swap that happened, and none of the rest of the family knew at all. So that was kind of her way of, let's send everyone else out the room. We're going to have a little talk.
Right.
And kind of like, but yeah, I legit thought the dad was going to die. because I mean his bum knee, and then the whole to the two kids in the closet with that fire. I'm like, one's gonna eat the other. I didn't know what was gonna happen there, but it was definitely borderline fucking creepy, weirded me out. But like I said, to me it was a thriller, not really a horror movie. I mean, there's a few things there that I mean, at most I would just question, but with no jump scares and no like music that demands you to worry what's going to happen next. It was more of a not really worrying what's going to happen next, but more of a just a general inclination or a wonderment of what's going to happen next. Not, oh God, are they going to die? Because usually when they're going to kill someone, they're going to do it pretty quickly. They just milk that for the whole damn movie.
It's weird because I would recommend this to people because it's an interesting concept. I think the acting was done fairly well by most of the actors throughout the movie. And I think just visually, the movie looked great. But a part of me doesn't know how to tell somebody how to go into it. Like I can't go into it saying, well, you gotta look below the surface.
Right. And
I can't just say, well, just enjoy it for the ride either. Because the movie has these deeper tones to it, but it also, I don't think you should try to analyze it too quickly or to analyze it too deeply, because I don't think you're going to get satisfying answers to a lot of questions. And it might make the movie even fall apart for you if you try to analyze it too much.
Honestly, like the more I looked into the deeper meaning of this film, the more I was like, well, this doesn't make fucking sense. Like, why would they do like this, like that? And, so
yeah,
it's kind of like,
I would say for people going into this for the first time, obviously if you're listening to this, like, you're fucked. But like just go into it with an open mind. Just watch it, and then at the end, come to your own conclusions as to what you think the deeper meaning was. If you feel so inclined, go do your own research, look into it, but just be aware that the more you look into it, the more you will see the flaws for this film.
Yeah, you're just going to end up going down a rabbit hole and having probably more questions than honestly than the film begs. So,
like, why did it take so long for her to tell Gabe?
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't that like one of the first things she fucking told him? Better question.
Yeah.
If all this happened, why would you go back to Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Why not go far the fuck away?
Well, I mean, she did say that she didn't want to go back to the beach.
Well, yeah, but she was in the area. You would think being in the area would be just as bad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, whenever they showed that Hall of Mirrors scene again, I'm like, oh, it's coming full circle. And then that's when my brain started putting everything together. I'm like, how the hell is this going to end? And then it ended. I'm like, oh, good Lord, that's a lot of people. Oh, this is a lot deeper than I thought.
I knew right at the beginning when she saw the doppelganger, I was like, it's not going to be the little kid that comes out. Like, it's not. I knew it.
It also kind of felt like that movie dragged on a bit too long. They had their big reveal early on in the film, and then it just kind of like there were action scenes, and then it just kind of moseyed on near the end of the film. There was a revelation at the end with like a kind of a secondary climax, and then it just kind of ends, and there's.
Right.
I will agree. I felt like it did kind of go on.
It was kind of unsatisfying.
You never
in a lot of
really
ways.
find out like what the response is to, the tethered. Like obviously, like you see the miles long fucking stretch of them holding hands with like the news helicopters in the air. But like that's it, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very unsatisfying ending.
I would have definitely liked to see some media closure on like at the end whenever they finally pan on like the last 50 people or so that are hooked together, whatever. I would have liked to see the media's thought or the government coming in and doing their part to either silence or stop what was going on. But there was no closure past the family at all.
Right.
So I'm like, how long are they standing there for? Do they do that for like a day and then they've made their point? Are they trying to take over? Like, I'm guessing the entire country is affected. Like, is the entire world affected? I mean, there was no other external shots.
Because like the whole goal was to, bring awareness to the fact that like these people existed. Much like the original Hands Across America movement was like a protest for like the homeless people in the United States and all that. And that ended very differently than this did. Not a lot of people showed up for that, and so it's a big joke now. But like definitely some sort of closure would have been nice for this film.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, better than what it was. Actually, now that I think about it, I do remember that scene of them all being tied together going across the mountains and everything. I'm wondering if those were military helicopters or news helicopters.
No, those are definitely news helicopters.
Yeah, but I would have at least liked to hear, instead of just a camera pan over everything, I'd like to hear, background audio of different newscasters saying, we're getting reports in from this city or this city, or, instead of just music and a camera panning, give us some more, what's happening. So.
Right.
But
I will say, like, the right before that end scene when they're in the ambulance, and the little kid Jordan or Jason, I forget what the fuck his name was. It was Jason. When Jason like looks at his mom, like he fucking knows, dude.
Yeah.
Like he knows that like she's fucked up, and like she just smiles at him, and he's like, and like puts his fucking mask on. It's like, what? I need more than that. So.
Yeah, I agree with that scene as well. But I mean, honestly, at the end of the movie, I'm like, what did I just watch? I was expecting a horror movie with, a bunch of killings, and it's like, that's complete opposite of what I just watched. So,
right, like the trailer for this movie is kind of misleading. Like
it is extremely misleading.
It makes you think it's gonna be like 100 times scarier than it actually is, and in
it's
reality,
not really scary at all.
There isn't really any horror.
I mean, it would be a horrific experience to see you come in your own house and hold you hostage. But other than that, as far as like a scary tactic goes,
there wasn't a part of me at any point that was like, "Oh, fuck me," like in a sense of like being scared, like in a sense of being like mind fucked, like
it was more of a thinker. It was more of a thinker than anything else. Like, I'm waiting for a scare here. Like, there's a lot of dark scenes. I'm waiting for a scare. I mean, I think the only part of it that really scared me was when they were all in the driveway, and then two kids branch off immediately up the side, and they're both crawling. I'm like, oh god, that's some creepy shit right there. That was the most I was creeped out the entire movie, except for of course when the doppelganger mom started speaking, and it was like she didn't have vocal cords but was trying to speak because she actually was real and could speak. Just I guess hadn't developed past a certain point, or I'm not sure what happened in the underneath society. But
my only theory was that she hadn't actually spoke to anybody in so long that she kind of had forgotten how to. But
right,
that's a good point.
Because they communicated with like grunts and shit. Like that was how they communicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, grunts and yells or whatever. Because
you also
dad
have to realize that, like, during this time, while the tethered version of her was on the surface getting like an education, she was not.
Yeah,
she's probably not the most fucking literate person in the world.
Yeah.
Plus, that whole time she's down there, she's probably trying to figure out where the hell's my mom, and what is going on.
Right.
The little girl, though, she was weird to begin with. Like,
yeah, she was.
Didn't really talk. She just kind of like silently like wandered around. Like, that's kind of weird for a kid.
Right. But I mean, like, if you think about it in terms of, that was kind of clearly not the best sort of like family relationship. The dad was a drunk. Obviously didn't seem to care that much. There's obviously like some sort of, if not physical, at least like emotional abuse happening there. So that could have contributed to that.
Yeah, there were some of my thoughts during that carnival scene. I was like, oh, cool, that's carnival. And the mom is berating the dad every 2 seconds. And the kid's just kind of sitting there watching it all, walking around. I was like, God, if that was my carnival experience, get me the hell out of there.
Your environment shapes who you become. So.
Yeah, well, I guess that's kind of why she was not really a mute, but chose not to talk because of either fear or just traumatic stress going on all the time. So, but overall, I would watch it again.
Yeah,
but
I'm definitely gonna watch it again.
That and half the movie, my head was filled with baby cries, so that didn't make it any better.
Fucking God, I forgot about that completely. Dude.
Yeah,
that's why
infant to that movie.
Yeah,
that's why I don't remember half the movie because there was a damn baby in my ear half the time.
Yeah, these fucking people brought a fucking infant, like not even like a toddler,
literal
like
infant,
a fucking infant, like couple months, maybe less, into the fucking rated R movie that has like ominous tones and shit. Like it's not gonna pick up on that and feel stressed and start crying and shit.
Every time there was a quiet scene that was supposed to be dramatic,
there's a fucking baby crying.
Like, oh God.
And then when things got louder, then the more loud whining, and then the crying started, and it was Connor sitting next to me. And every time I'm hearing this, I'm going, really?
Yeah, dude. And like for the longest time, they weren't trying to they eventually the mom got up and like walked out of the theater to like calm the kid. But that was like an hour and a half into that fucking film, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The whole time like she's pacing in the back fucking row trying to get it to calm down, and it's like, just fucking leave, dude. Like, fucking go, man.
You should never have brought a child that
just
young.
Rent the movie when it comes out. Don't ruin everyone else's experience, because I think AMC now needs to update their intro with please silence your phones. And please, well, I mean, it already says no talking during the movie, please. And I'm thinking, granted, I haven't heard. I was actually just thinking, you know what? I haven't heard in the theater in a long time was a baby. And I swear to God, the first thing I hear a baby in the corner. I'm like, oh, that baby had better stop. Please tell me that was the only coo that it has. Right. And then it just got worse as the movie went on. I'm like, I don't want to be that asshole that says take your baby out of the theater, but please be smart enough to do it yourself.
Right. Like, I get, like, the time having a baby is hard. There's a lot of stuff that you don't get to do anymore. So like after having like a kid, you might want to like go see a movie and like all this shit. But like, you gotta think of others. Like, don't be an inconsiderate piece of shit. And
here's the thing.
Movies, like, go fucking rent something at home, like spend time with your fucking family and the comfort of your own house.
Two things. I have no sympathy for these people because A, you find somebody to watch your kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fucking babysitter, man. Like, what the fuck?
If you cannot find a single person who is willing to watch your kid for 2 hours, how the fuck did you alienate everybody in your life? and if it's maybe just that night, you can't find somebody for that night, go a different night.
Right. Go a different night.
Get a babysitter. And the second thing is, it will eventually come out to rent it then.
Right, yeah.
This isn't being like anti-parent. This is being, I paid X amount of money to go see this, and you're diminishing the experience for me and everybody else.
Like, if I had a child, I would not be taking it to fuck you. I would not be taking it to the fucking movies when it's like a month old. Like, I would be at home with it, if I wanted to watch a movie, I'd fucking rent a movie. Or like,
rent the damn movie Netflix, when it comes out. I would say it's okay to bring your kid to the movie if you can tell them to shut the hell up and they understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
like,
it's like
little Jimmy, you better shut up or you won't get ice cream after the movie. Okay, Mom, and then the kid's quiet the rest of
Don't
the movie.
even bring
I don't
a
give a
kid
shit.
to an R-rated movie anyway.
That was going to be my, my thing. Like,
period.
I agree with that. I do agree. Do not bring your kid to an R-rated movie. If it's PG-13 and it's a kid's movie, I don't give a shit. Because, I mean, it's for them. But when it's an R-rated movie and there's silence in the movie for at least 10 seconds and I hear baby go, I'm like,
there are
damn
ratings, there are ratings on this movie for a reason. You know,
just because you have a parent with you does not mean I'm going to bring a 1-month-old to a rated R movie. So when there's a pivotal quiet scene and you're waiting for something to happen, there's not a baby in your left ear crying, which pulls my attention for half a second, and then I actually don't watch what's going on.
Not
so
even that,
I'm gonna
like if your kid is like fucking 6, you know, and you take it to a horror movie.
Yeah,
like, it's
nightmares.
It's gonna have fucking nightmares, man. Like,
remember,
I don't want to give my
wasn't
kid
some
nightmares.
horror movie we went to and there was like a kid crying, a little like
dude.
3 or 4-year-old kid crying in it.
It scared him so much that he was crying.
Yeah,
and the mom was just like, "Shut up," and it's like,
yeah,
he doesn't like it.
The kid, and it's like. Somebody needs to like report you to child services for mentally scarring this kid.
Right.
Like,
I mean, if a kid watches a horror movie, it should be because they want to watch it.
Yeah.
And if you go to the movie and the kid starts screaming bloody murder or crying during the horror movie, you're gonna have to watch that movie again some other time. Take the kid out, so the adults that like horror movies can actually watch it without having to pay $15 to hear someone cry.
Not only that, but on top of that, if you have to take care of your child, like, you know, that lady did, you know, having to like leave the theater, at that point you're missing that part of the movie. So was it really worth it to fucking not see that movie? Because you didn't see that movie. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I mean, 5 minutes of a horror movie. That's a lot.
Not only did you not see that movie, but you fucked it up for everybody else in that theater.
Everybody else. That I'm wondering how many other people were ready to get up, walk. I was ready to get up, walk out. You know, I'm half tempted to start telling the ushers or whoever management, be like, can you guys throw some rules around here about not allowing kids in, especially to R-rated movies, if they're under the age of infancy? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Heard from a coworker. I don't know if this is true. At least for AMC, I don't know if it's true. But he said at AMC's, if you text, there's like a hotline or whatever, you can text, they'll escort them out of the room.
Interesting.
And it's like anonymous.
Oh, I need to know about this.
I don't know if it's true, but I know at the Alamo, all you got to do is write it on a little note, put it up like it's like an order for food, and then they'll kick the person out. Like you get, it's a 0 tolerance policy for talking or texting during a movie.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Praise to the Alamo. You will always get my monies.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love my experiences at the Alamo. So, just kind of wish they'd go for more of an HD screen.
I mean, it's an old theater, man. What do you expect?
I expect updates, man. Updates.
But then it wouldn't have the nuance of being old.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah. True.
So I think that that kind of wraps it up for
us.
Our thoughts
literally.
on this movie. You know, let's go around the table. Let's do some closing thoughts, like, you know, just short. Like, would you go see this? Yes or no?
Okay. I'll go ahead and start and get mine out of the way. I do recommend seeing this, especially if you're a Get Out fan. And Jordan Peele's doing a fantastic job with horror movies or thriller movies, whatever you want to call them. I can't wait to see what his next one comes out to be. I just hope it's not more of a, mind fuck than the last one. I did enjoy this one. I do recommend seeing. I don't know if I already said that or not, but I'll reiterate it again. I recommend it, but try to don't think too much in it. Don't overthink it. Just go watch it, and then come up with your own conclusion. And I guess we put these on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys can come to the YouTube channel and leave your comments on what you thought happened. But overall, I'd say recommend, and I can't wait to see Jordan Peele's next video and move on.
Connor,
I would recommend seeing it at some point. You don't necessarily have to go to the theater. Maybe you rent it. I don't think it's as good as Get Out, but it has some interesting concepts that are definitely worth exploring.
You're worth exploring.
Yeah, it's a slight recommendation.
Right.
Slight recommendation. Yeah.
So I would say, if you have the chance to go see this, like go see it. It's a good movie. It's not as good as Get Out, but it's not the worst horror movie I've ever seen, and it makes you think. So if you like thinking, which some people shouldn't do, but if you like thinking, go see this movie. And as for Jordan Peele, he I think is turning into an amazing director. And like Get Out was fantastic. Us is pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see what he does next. I think he's bringing Candyman back to the big screen. And he's doing that, so that'll be interesting to see.
Maybe an actual horror movie.
Yeah, hopefully. But yeah, so I think that's gonna wrap it up for us on this SpookyCast. And until next time, guys.
All right, later.